Good afternoon, everybody. This is Samko from Oregon Department of Education. Can people hear me and see my computer screen?
Yes.
Great. Okay. Thank you. Okay. So it's 1:01 p.m. Monday, and I know all of you are very busy, and I want to respect everyone's time. So we're just going to go ahead and get started. So I need to apologize first. This webinar, I don't have a lot of answers, but it's more of an informational opportunity and for you to provide feedback and questions, because ODE as a team, we don't, nothing is finalized yet either. So that's why the main objective of this webinar was to inform everybody of Measure 98, and that hopefully JDEP, LTCT, and YCEP will be also recipients of funding in, as a result of the passage of Measure 98. Okay, so for those of you that want information on Measure 98, OD has a website. It's posted on the screen and in my PowerPoint. There you can go and get the FAQ, the Measure 98 text, and guiding principles, and so forth. I had internal meetings with the Measure 98 team before, and that's why. And then when I had our internal meetings, I felt, oh, as soon as I should schedule a webinar for our JDEP, LTCT, and YCEP sites. So that's why I knew it was going to be released last week. That's why I scheduled the webinar Monday. I didn't want to schedule the webinar before the documents are released. So that's why we scheduled it Monday, so you guys have as much time to prepare, and you guys have the information hot off the presses. Okay, so what is Measure 98? Measure 98 identifies 3 specific areas where the district must direct 98 funds, Measure 98 funds to, and it's on the screen. You can read it now. It was advertised $800 per student, 9 through 12, but there is language in the statute or the measure that says that the $800 can be prorated. So it may be $800 per kid, it may be $750, it may be $700, we don't know. It will depend on the legislature and the rulemaking, but it needs to be funding these 3 programs: establish or expand career technical education programs in high schools, expand college-level education opportunities for students in high schools, establish or expand dropout prevention strategies in high schools. Now, a question that the ODE team, Measure 98 ODE team, received was like, with the funding, do you have to develop, establish or expand programs in all 3, or can you focus only on 1? And that has not been determined. It might be where 90% of the funds could go for here, 5%, 5%, or 33, 33, 33. We don't know. We don't know how the rules are going to be developed. We don't know how the application is going to be developed, and so forth. So, but we do know the statute was clear that the funding has to go to these 3 programs. Now, items from the Q&A document. Are districts required to apply for Measure 98 funds? No. How would the funding be calculated and awarded? And in the measure, so this is something that we really want to stress. It's kind of like federal funds. You're to supplement, not supplant. So in the measure, establish or expand languages. If a school district is at capacity in regard to CTE programs, college-level education opportunities, or dropout intervention, is the school district required to develop additional programs, or can they expand, retool the existing programs under Measure 98? And here's the text. In other words, let's say a site or a school was spending $100,000 for their CTE program. And if they get an additional $100,000 from Measure 98, they cannot use that fund to fund another program. They have to continue to use their $100,000 that they were currently using and add on or expand. You cannot use Measure 98 funds to supplant your current funding. Hopefully everyone is aware of that. So you cannot, the language is establish and expand. So it is to create new programs or to expand existing programs. So if you have a budget shortfall and you have to make a cut to CTE or your college courses, you can't use Measure 98 to backfill that funding. Does anyone have any questions on that? No? Okay, I'm going to move on. Okay, the impact on JDEP, LTCT, and YCEP. Okay, the application process to receive the 98 funds has yet to be determined. And we don't know yet whether JDEP will have, like each JDEP site will have to apply for the funds, or JDEP as a whole will have to apply for the funds, or if, like for instance, if Lane ESD, if they have to apply for the funds as a district, and if there'll be a page or a section for their JDEP program or the LTCT or YCEP program. So the application process has not been determined. There could be three ways. One, JDEP as a whole, LTCT as a whole, or YCEP as a whole, or each individual site submits an application, or each school district, but if a school district has one of the contracts, they have to include their JDEP, LTCT, or YCEP within their application. That has not been determined yet. Now, the statute clearly states will be ADM. So for LTCT sites that aren't as cut off with ADM, you have to submit, you have to be caught up with ADM. For JDEP and YCEP, we're pretty much caught up on ADM, but it's going to, the determination of the number of kids in 9 through 12 will be by ADM. And the funds will remain with the program, not with the school district or ESD contractor. So therefore, like if you receive Measure 98 funds and if you cease to be the contractor for the following year, the funds will remain with the site, not with the contractor. Oh, and by the way, so for instance, it might be where this year's ADM will determine the funding for next year, similar to how the state school fund is, because if the funds are available next October, the calculations have to be done prior to the distribution. So the prior year ADM might determine the next year's distribution level for Measure 98 funds. And as I receive updates from the Measure 98 team, I'll send them out. So the message to all of you is start formulating ideas or thoughts on how your site will expand or establish initiatives in the three areas. And again, the three areas are here: career technical education programs in high schools, college level educational opportunities for students in high schools, establish or expand dropout prevention strategy in high schools. And from here, Mitch and I, we're advocating to the Measure 98 team to not forget JDEP, LTCT, and YCEP in the distribution of Measure 98 funds. Now, if you have any questions or comments that you'd want to send to the Measure 98 team, send them to me by Friday, December 9, and I will collate them, tabulate them, and send them to the Measure 98 team. Now, does anyone have questions from the field outside right now? Any questions on Measure 98?
Stan, this is Nick Nelson from the Dallas High School.
Hey Nick, how's it going?
Good, good. Hey, question, can these funds be used for GED prep? Or do you know yet?
I don't know yet, and then I don't know if I'm looking at the three things, it might fall under expand dropout prevention strategies in high school.
Right.
But I do know GED prep will not fall under the first two.
Okay.
So that's a good question. And I don't know if it's in the Q&A. I don't.
I didn't see it.
I didn't see it either. So, yeah, that's a good question, and it's still brand new. And somebody asked online, do you know when the funds will be delivered? We don't know the exact date, but it might be October of 2017. So, or it'll be October of 2017. That October of each year, that's when it'll be released. Here it is on the Q&A. And it'll be released in EGOMS. Are there any questions? Any other questions? So of note, I'd like to highlight something. This is language of the measure. The indirect is kind of it's right here. So for may not use 5%, more than 5%, and in district may not use 4%, and it goes gradually, and you can only use it for these activities. Now, also, we would have to track student attendance in grades 9 through 12. For a JDEP, YCEP, and LTCT, that's not an issue. But if you might have to start tracking referral, suspension, and expulsions by race and ethnicity for JDEP, LTCT, and YCEP, which is not an issue because JDEP and YCEP, we don't suspend or expel, but we're not currently tracking referrals. So if we have to start tracking referrals, that'll be a new setup and synergy that will have to be developed by ODE. And for long-term care and treatment, you would have to, each LTCT site will have to set up their own, will have to utilize their own system. Any other questions? No other questions? So like I said, the way I opened up the webinar was I've been meeting with the Measure 98 ODE team, and I knew the materials were going to be released last week. So when I knew the timeline, I scheduled the webinar for our sites, As I get information with the team, I'll send it out. But rest assured, I'm advocating for JDEP, LTCT, and YCEP to also receive funding from Measure 98. And then just roughly offhand, it's about per year, $140 million. That's quite a bit. And if you see, like the Q&A states $800 per high school student, for some of the larger sites, it can add up. So
I've got one question, Sam. Will the money follow the student? So, like in our situation here, if a student comes in and they're here for a month or two, and then they're gone, they go to a different district or go back to their home district, does that money follow them, or how will the accounting be handled?
Okay, that's a good question, but from what I understand, once the ADM has been set, it doesn't follow the kid.
Okay.
Otherwise, it'd be a logistical nightmare with kids going all over. So let's say, like North Wausau School District, you guys submitted your high school. Let's say, how big is your high school, by the way?
About 840.
Let's say let's say 840. You would get funding for 840 the upcoming year. So if you have like 820, your amount wouldn't be reduced. That's my understanding.
Okay.
The ADM will be done the previous year.
Got it.
That's my understanding. I could be wrong, but and it's on a reimbursement basis.
Okay. And so our Northcore attendance would be included in the high school's ADM, or would it
I
be
don't
separate?
know. That's I don't know, because it'll all depend on how the ODE team wants to handle JDEP, LTCT, and YCEP. Will it be part of your school district? Will it be part of the JDEP district as a whole, or will it be site by site? I don't know, because
Okay.
JDEP, let's say it's about 190 ADM. You know, will they want one application for JDEP, or will they want North Wasco's application to include JDEP? Or,
Right.
well, you know, will Norcore have to submit their own application, you know, for your like 14 ADM? I don't know how they're gonna how that's gonna be developed. But then I've been in conversation with them, and I've informed them of the numbers of school districts and ESDs that are impacted.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, so a question was, will other ESD programs will be able to access the funds, alternative high schools, special education schools? That's a question I haven't asked. I can ask that, and I will ask that. If other programs can access it, like alternative high schools, special ed schools, if they collect ADM, I don't see why not. But I've just been advocating for the 3 programs that I am responsible for. A question was, will there be a snapshot in time to determine the allotted amount of funding? Maybe. That has not been determined. It might be the ADM in October 1. I'm not too sure. Or it might be final ADM. I'm not too sure. But once it's set, I'm pretty sure it's set. Right, so a person said about the equity issue for ESD programs through resolution contract placements. That's a very good question. And if you could email me that question, and I can send that to the ODE Measure 9018. because most definitely we do not want the programs run by ESCs to be overlooked. Okay, so here's a question. Is the awarding of Measure 98 funding going to affect our other funding? Make it less? That is a very that's a very loaded kind of complicated question, because what happened was Measure 98 did not have a mechanism to generate revenue. So in other words, let's say Measure 98 will cost $300 million. So now $300 million has to be dedicated to Measure 98 initiatives. It's not where the state will gain $300 million. It just stated that they have to allocate. So whether the legislature will get that $300 million, it might take money away from the general fund. It may take money from the state school fund. I don't know, but it has to come from somewhere. Right. Somebody stated that October counts are always low, and it is true for LTCT and JDEP. It is gonna that's just the way our three programs operate. Unfortunately, USDOE uses the October count for a lot of funding, and ODE might follow the way. I mean, might follow suit. So it might be. The grant process, the question is, how long is the grant process fill out going to take? I don't know if it's going to be 1 page, 5 pages. That has not been determined. So the application form itself, the Measure 98 team, they're working out the details. And in March, well, and in January through March, school districts and ESDs will have an opportunity to submit comments for the rulemaking for Measure 98. So here's the Q&A. So school districts and ESCs will have an opportunity to submit input, and most definitely use this process, because once it's an administrative rule, it's pretty much set. Any other questions? If there are no other questions, I'd like to thank everybody for taking your time out of your busy schedule, and email me any questions and comments, and I'll forward it to the Measure 98 team. And as I said earlier, rest assured, I'm here at ODE advocating for our three programs to be a part of Measure 98, to receive funding, and as I get information, I'll try to share out with everybody else. Okay, thank you. And I'll post the recording on YouTube, and everyone has a PowerPoint and the documents. Thank you, everybody. Have a good day.